We'll open the meeting at 6:31. So I hope tonight is something that'll be pretty quick. So in the draft warrant, there is an article that's a holdover from last year because of the way we trimmed down town meeting. And it's for $10,000 from Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation to purchase some movable radar speed signs to be able to place around town. And I think you'll remember from our pilot, that was one of the things in the final public information session that came up from several people. So I sent some information out this afternoon. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at it. It just kind of showed what I was talking about and what those signs were. But I'm sure you've seen them on 117 in Bolton and in Lancaster and in some of our neighboring towns. But what Margaret had asked is that because this was it was money, and that it was something that now kind of would fall under the purview of our committee, that our committee talk about it and take a vote to move the article forward. Does anyone have any questions or any discussion about that? Wow, this is easy.
The only thing I want to say is, somebody did at one point at one of these meetings bring up the fact that some of these signs are kind of obnoxious when they hit you're speeding and they flash. I don't know. It's something we want to lean more towards, or the friendly one that gives you a smiley face, or please slow down, or something to that effect.
Yeah. So that's there's a few companies I've been talking to. One, I don't have a quote yet, so I didn't send you that information. But the ones that were the company is Traffic Logics, and those are the ones that were like in the body of the email with the links. The ones that have like the delineation FM on them are full matrix, and they allow basically whatever we would want to pop up as a graphic, we can create it and it can work. So that gives us a lot of flexibility in what the sign does and how it reacts. One of the things that I'm interested in, and from a public safety and a policing perspective, is data collection. So not all of them collect data. So my thought is that as we move forward, if we decided to move forward and we were going to make a purchase, the other company, All Traffic Solutions, has a real good data package with theirs. And that would be something that I would like to see because that will really give us some good data on the roads. And if we were to do any speed limiting or some projects, it actually collects all the data for us and we wouldn't have to do it manually. So I like maybe look at a combination of manufacturers, but that would be something that's down the road.
Oh, are these going to be portable units, or are they going to be fixed somewhere?
Portable. That's the most important thing, is that we're going to get ones that we can set up separately. Originally, when the warrant article was drafted, and I'm going to talk to Margaret about that, we wanted to do solar. But in the last few days, talking to some of the representatives, the battery life has now increased to up to 14 days on some of these units. So, chances are, if we needed it in a location more than 14 days, to have a spare battery to swap that out or to bring it in and charge it for a short period of time isn't going to be a problem. The solar ones are definitely a little bit more cumbersome, and they're going to take some more time to mount and move and do some things. So I'd be looking probably more at doing some of the 12 volt cell ones instead of solar.
In terms of the data that you collect, what types of data? Just traffic count?
It'll collect. Yep, it'll collect similar, almost all the same data that the tubes collect. So it'll give us a volume. It'll give us speed. It'll give us vehicle class, and it'll also do all the calculations. So it'll give us the 80th percentile. It'll give us the mean. It'll give us the 95th percentile. All the data that the state looks for and out of the collection that they do for their traffic surveys.
So you'd be able to identify, that 20% of the traffic by a certain spot is going above 10 miles an hour above.
And I should be able to, depending on the report package, be able to come up with enforcement reports that show me the peak times when you're going to get the highest percentage of people going over those speeds. So this equipment's improved quite a bit. We do have a pole mounted device already, but the software that the new devices have compared to the old one, it's unbelievable.
So if I look at the 3 attachments you've got and I open these up, they're a single unit. What are you're proposing to mount them onto?
So there's the mounting, it allows some versatility in the mounting. You can mount them onto signposts. You can bolt them through on the holes, or you can mount them direct to utility poles. It's really versatile in how you do the mounting.
Great, great. And tell me again how many you're talking about?
So we were hoping, there was some sales when we actually looked at this, and they were they were down at like $2,500 a piece. So we were hoping to do 4. That was one thing I had a discussion when I presented to the board, the select board Monday. And I mentioned that if we could even maybe talk about upping this to potentially up to 12 to 15,000 to allow us to possibly buy 4, that might be a better option. But if we need to stay, and then that's not something that Margaret may be able to answer for us, if we need to stay in that $10,000 window because of how she planned things and how things are planned financially, we can live with that even if we only did 3. It would still allow us the ability to move them around and have them in a lot of different places. So, and the other possibility, Tim, is there still money from Highland Commons dedicated to the Gates Pond Road area, right?
I believe there is. I mean, what did we start with, 25,000?
Something, yeah. I forget how much we spent on the speed humps.
Yeah,
and
I don't believe that that's all expended. So, I mean, if you wanted to dedicate one to down on that neck of the woods,
Yeah. we
you
might
could
be able to get.
steal it out of that.
Okay, that was something I was actually talking to Ed Pluff today, and that was something that came to mind as I was talking to him from Benderson. So,
Well, yeah, and we could chat with, Carolyn and ask her to pull together some of the Gates Pond folks like they have in the past and get them to give some input as to whether they want the
yeah, maybe
remainder.
if we do move forward, if we do purchase these and we have them up in other areas of town and the Gates Pond folks see it, they might be willing to move forward with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, so I guess I would be looking for a motion to support draft Article 25, and I don't know if if we want to move it to $12,000 or if we want to leave it at 10 as Margaret has it drafted.
Well, if Margaret's not listening too closely, I move that we move it to 12 and support this article on the warrant.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor? We'll do a roll call. So Ken?
Aye, yes.
Tim?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Mary. Is Mary not a voting member? I don't know. And I'll be an aye. So excellent. Well, that passes. So I knew that would be quick. So thank you. There was a second thing that came up just today in an email from Margaret that isn't on the agenda, but it's something I want to just go over quickly and that we can talk about in a future meeting. So there's been a request made to the select board for traffic lights at Route 62 and Gates Pond Road. So then, Tim, as you're aware, there's a lot of history there. So as part of the Highland Commons mitigation agreement, I think it was before 150,000 square feet of occupied space, maybe, there was supposed to be a traffic light there. I talked to, I've made a few calls today, and I talked to people from Benderson, and in 2004 was the initial, I believe, design of the traffic plan down there. So that included the improvements that we've seen, the work that was done at the off ramps, and it was also to include a new set of traffic lights at Gates Pond Road. They moved forward. I think they did some additional traffic studies in 2007, 2008, and then there was a new plan submitted to the state in 2009 without the traffic light because the state did not want 2 traffic lights in such close proximity to the highway off ramps. So I'm waiting. I sent an email to Barry Lorian of District 3 at Mass DOT to get some of his input on that, and I haven't heard back yet. But I think this is a discussion that the select board are going to want us to have a little bit more in depth. So as I get some information, I will provide that more to you. I don't, ultimately it would have to be a state project or a project at Highland Commons because it's still technically in the mitigation agreement. I don't know if they're somewhat released from that because they've already received the occupancy and the state didn't want them to put it in. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion as we move forward. And I think something as we've kind of alluded to in the past in some of the other meetings, looking at Route 62 and the whole corridor through the town of Berlin as and what we do in terms of traffic management for the future.
So that was part of the development agreement that we wrote in the initial phase. And then it got left out as we modified the development agreement,
No,
or?
I believe it's actually still in the agreement. The problem is the state would not allow
It didn't
vendors
meet
to construct it as designed with the two sets of traffic lights.
Right. I mean, was it contingent on state approval or anything like that? This is so
I would
long
have
ago.
to go back and look at the language, and I don't know if there was a contingency like that.
I have the agreement in front of me.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's without limitation approval of Mass Highway. The developer shall complete the following traffic improvements.
Okay.
say
So-
that again. It was what?
Without limitation, approval of Mass Highway, the developer shall complete the following traffic improvements. And one is the signals at 490 Gates Pond Road and 62.
So Dave, you don't need state approval. Is that what it says?
No, it's required to have state,
Yeah.
if I read that correctly, that
Yeah, and
approval of Mass Highway.
Yeah, and they've
State
always,
controls road.
they've
So
always argued we didn't meet the warrant for approval for a lot of the, I mean, like Pleasant and 62, we've talked about it there, but whenever
Yeah.
we've reviewed it, they've said, no, you don't have, well, usually it's level of service issues, but there's also the safety factor, but often they look at level of service, and level of service at Gates Pond probably isn't, there's a safety issue, but the level of service issue probably isn't met by any stretch of the imagination at all.
No,
it's something, what Margaret and I have talked about, and especially with the whole Route 62 corridor is getting our local legislators together, Central Mass Regional Planning, and doing a site visit, get them to come to town, have a day, our reps from Mass DOT, and meet in several areas on Route 62, look at what's going on, look at and talk about what the future is and what we need to do to come up with a definitive traffic plan for that road. That can lead us getting onto the tip and doing other things to get some funding for it.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of a light at that road. Somebody pulled out and totaled my car at that intersection.
Oh, wow.
It's
It's a
not always
bad-
the easiest intersection. Yeah.
Bad intersection.
And,
Yep.
and when they did the construction, they widened it. It went from 4 lanes to 5 lanes wide. So it actually made it more difficult for those people on Gates Pond Road or exiting Gates Pond Road.
Yeah. And I know somebody living down there. It's also impossible to get out in commuter hours. You can't get out of Gates Pond Road if you live on
Well,
that way.
the amount of people that live there that make the right-hand turn, go into Highland Commons, loop around on Highland Commons, come back out of the light.
It's the only way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Um,
All right, so that's something that we'll be up for future discussion. As I talk to the state and as we start to look at some other things, we'll reach out to CMRPC and look at having a meeting with them to really look at the future of Route 62. So, and that's all I have tonight. So I knew we could do this quick. Does anyone have anything else?
You want to hear what I learned today from MassDOT?
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
I met with Mickey Splain on the bridge.
Yeah.
That bridge cannot be added onto. The way it's designed, we can't extend or widen the deck.
Okay,
Also, it's in good shape, so they have no desire to change it. The only recommendation he had was to strip the deck, have it, if we can get some form of mitigation money out of the developer, have them redo the deck and put a shared use bike pedestrian bridge adjacent to the auto bridge.
okay.
but it wasn't really good news because like I say, there's no way to widen the abutment. To accept another span or another section of roadway. And also, and one of the questions that we had going into this was, he seems to think because of, if you had a hydraulic study done now, they're gonna make you widen the bridge.
So say that again. If we
If-
did have a
if-
hydraulic study done, they believe we would have to widen it,
Widen the span, lengthen the span,
so it would carry more volume.
more volume of
Water-wise.
water, correct.
Yeah.
And he-
That's what we suspected.
Correct.
So
And-
if that were the factor, if it was driven by flood control issues and, you know, that issue, does the state have any interest in, I mean, would we be eligible for a grant to help support changing the bridge for that? It's that MVP issue, the mitigation.
Possibly, right, possibly. That'd be the only avenue that they would be interested in getting involved with if we could prove that there's an environmental issue.
But for the soundness of the structure, they're confident that it's in good shape. So that's good
Yeah.
to know too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
That would probably lessen our priority for any funding under MVP too.
Last night when Senny spoke with the planning board, they really favored not having to do a pedestrian bikeway bridge independent of that bridge and really supported the idea of replacing the bridge with a much wider bridge that would accommodate bicycles and pedestrians at the same time.
That's going to definitely up their price tag then.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
threw a number of $3 million.
Well, did Sujatha at Central Mass got figures from a couple different sources, and you know, Shrewsbury was looking at a several $1 million cost to a bridge that they were working at, and then some others were smaller numbers, but less of a project. So, yeah, this is interesting. It may very well be that we've really got to address the pedestrian and bicyclist independent bridge. And that's, you know, River Bridge has really got to face the reality that that's an agreement that they made way back in the beginning. So, huh,
So,
interesting.
so that'll be interesting as we move forward.
I have one other item just for us to think about over time, and I think it's related to this committee enough, so it probably is something that the planning board would value input on it. But we do see a lot of these small little subdivisions that are, you know, 2 houses, 3 houses, and a cul-de-sac in our mind for the town to maintain is a pain in the neck. So often we've suggested to proponents that if they wanted to, we would allow them to build the base to a certain standard, but finish the roadway to a lesser standard if they agreed to keep it as a private way. And then the potential would be there if at some point in the future the town were going to take it over, that at least it was constructed on a superficial level to a degree that could allow improvement, so it could be a town way, paved and all. But really go with as much passive drainage and as limited a paved area and a private way, and allow that to be an acceptable means of someone gaining frontage so they could build the 2 houses they wanted to build. And I guess over time, I'd be interested in what people have to say about that, whether we're really crazy to move in that direction, or whether the town has ought to bite the bullet, and anytime anybody's going to build a house, it ought to be on a road that is an accepted way that the town maintains. So something to think about.
Yeah, I definitely have some interesting thoughts on that, you know, and I don't know how the rules would fall with private ways versus common drives and some of the issues that face us with common driveways. So that would be at least from a policing concern.
Yeah. Now, have you had common driveway issues above and beyond the one off of Brigham, or are you finding that that's a problem throughout the town?
We are having a couple of other issues. Actually, it's kind of a private way condo type of issue also. Not as severe as the other one.
You know, we've got the language on the warrant this time that says, in the case of a common driveway where a modification has been agreed upon by the members, if it's determined by the planning board that the modification is less than minor, we have the opportunity to participate in a discussion, hold a public hearing, and make some, I guess, actionable requests that they deal with that. So that'd be interesting to
Yeah.
play with later. I've got to take this call.
Okay. So, all right. Well, with that, does anyone else have any other comments? Well, I would accept.
I'll hold mine till later. I got some on the cul-de-sac thing, but Tim's busy. I
Yeah.
didn't know what the history was in Berlin, and they're kind of problematic a lot of ways, especially when you want to put those nice planting areas in the middle, and they're a nightmare in my plowing experience. And
Yeah.
and with that, it makes it so much bigger too. You can make them a lot smaller, all hot top, just enough turning radius to get a public safety vehicle turned around there. And it's, they're, and when I retired, I was assigned a bunch of those with a little planting area in the middle, and you spent more time there than you did the whole other part of your plow route.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's problematic. I don't know what Dave thinks about them.
Yeah, not a fan.
Nope, not at all. Plus with the big trucks, you're always driving over, they make them narrow, and you're driving over with the rear set of wheels, you know what I mean, onto the grass, so.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
All right. Well, I'm sure there'll be some more discussions on that in
Yep.
the future as the planning board has questions. But I appreciate everyone's time tonight. I would accept the motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.